So imagine you hire a security guard, right? You want them to watch your house, keep things safe.
Makes sense.
Yeah, but then you find out this guy is actually paying his own salary by drawing up a highly detailed map of where you keep your jewelry and your electronics.
Oh, wow.
Right, and he's just auctioning it off to the local burglars.
That is, yeah, that's a nightmare scenario.
Exactly. And welcome in, everyone, whether you're prepping for some massive corporate architecture meeting or you're just incredibly curious about locking down your own data, we are custom tailoring this deep dive entirely for you.
We really are.
Today, we're looking at a super concise, but man, a really hard-hitting document. It's titled Day 25 VPN Myths. And our mission today is basically to completely dismantle this comfortable illusion we all have that a virtual private network makes you into some sort of, like, digital ghost.
Right, the whole invincibility myth.
Exactly, because what happens when you install a security tool to protect yourself and that very tool actually becomes the active threat?
It's a gap that security professionals see constantly, right?
Yeah.
This document, it really strips away all the slick branding. It forces us to look at the actual math and the economics running underneath these tools.
Which is usually where things get ugly.
Very ugly, especially when we examine the ecosystem of commercial VPNs that are just heavily marketed to everyday users.
Yeah.
You find that the Shield people explicitly install to hide their data.
The shield itself is fundamentally compromised.
Exactly. The tool itself is the threat vector.
Okay, let's push straight into the most common entry point for this trap, which is the business model of free software.
The word free.
Yes, free, because if I go to an app store right now and I search for a VPN, I mean, I am flooded with hundreds of free options.
Oh, thousands, probably.
Right, and they all promise, like, military-grade encryption and total anonymity, and it costs $0. But anyone who understands basic infrastructure knows that running a global network of servers is incredibly capital-intensive.
It's massively expensive.
Yeah, you've got bandwidth, transit costs, colocation leasing.
Server cooling, load balancing, maintenance.
Exactly. So if the user isn't paying for that infrastructure with a monthly subscription, that money has to come from somewhere.
Right, and the document lays this out with just brutal economic clarity. If you aren't paying with money, your data is the product.
The classic tech adage.
It is, but we need to move beyond just saying data is the product as a cliche.
Yeah.
We need to look at the actual pipeline of how they do it.
Okay, break that down for us.
So a free VPN provider, they're not running a charity.
Right.
They are essentially a data brokerage firm that is just wearing a security tool disguise.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah, because when you route all of your traffic through their infrastructure,
Yeah.
you are voluntarily funneling, every DNS request, every IP connection, every timestamp
Straight into their hands.
directly through their logging servers.
Okay, but let me play devil's advocate here for a second.
I'm for it.
Because if we look at modern web traffic, the vast majority of it is encrypted, right, with TLS. So if I connect to a free VPN and then I go to my bank's website, which uses HTTPS.
Right, it has a little padlock.
Exactly. The VPN provider is just seeing garbled ciphertext passing through their tunnel. They can't see my password. They can't see my checking account balance.
Sure.
So how exactly are they monetizing that encrypted stream if they can't read it?
See, that right there is the exact false comfort that these companies rely on.
Really?
Yeah, you're absolutely correct that they cannot easily read the actual payload of an HTTPS request, not without executing a really complex man-in-the-middle attack.
Right.
But the thing is, they don't need the payload to build a highly lucrative profile on you.
They don't?
No, they rely entirely on metadata.
Ah, okay.
Even with TLS encryption, the VPN provider can still see something called the server name indication, the SNI data.
Okay, the SNI. What does that actually tell them?
It tells them exactly which domains you are resolving, because they are the ones usually acting as your DNS resolver.
So they see the envelope, but not the letter.
Precisely. They don't know what page on the website you're looking at, but they know you connected to an oncology clinic's website at 2 in the morning.
Oh, wow. Okay, that is incredibly revealing.
Right. Or they know you spent exactly 45 minutes streaming content from a media platform that targets a very specific demographic.
Yeah.
Or they see you regularly connecting to the API endpoints of specific cryptocurrency exchanges.
So they take all of that.
They take that metadata, they combine it with your actual source IP address, your device fingerprint, your connection timestamps, and they aggregate it all.
And then package it for sale.
Exactly.
But I mean, how granular does that actually get? Are advertising networks really out there just buying giant spreadsheets of raw IP addresses and
Yeah.
DNS requests? It sounds kind of useless to a marketer.
Oh, no, they don't buy the raw data. They buy behavioral cohorts.
Okay, behavioral cohorts.
Yeah, the free VPN provider uses automated analytics to translate all those raw network requests into an identity profile.
Right.
So they categorize you. They make assumptions about your income bracket, your political leanings, medical concerns, purchasing habits.
Wow.
And then this aggregated intelligence is sold in bulk to third-party marketing firms, data brokers.
Just anyone willing to pay.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Sometimes even state-level actors who are just interested in traffic analysis.
That is wild. You installed the tool to stop your internet service provider from seeing your traffic.
And you just handed that exact same traffic over to an entity that has a direct financial imperative to exploit it.
Which brings us to this massive technical contradiction in the source text. It points out that beyond just, harvesting your data, the actual technical implementation of these free tools is fundamentally broken.
It's a mess.
Yeah, the text highlights weak or fake encryption, ad injection, and literally the inclusion of actual malware.
Yeah.
Let's start with the encryption aspect. What does fake encryption even look like at the network level?
It basically looks like gross negligence.
Okay.
I mean, to save on processing power and server load, some of these free VPNs, they use severely outdated, compromised encryption algorithms.
Like what?
We're talking about protocols like PPTP.
The point-to-point tunneling protocol.
Exactly, which relies on MSJPV2. And security researchers demonstrated, over a decade ago, that you can extract the authentication hashes from PPTP and just brute force them.
Seriously?
Yeah. With modern cloud computing, you can crack it in a matter of hours, if not minutes.
So they're using cryptographic standards that belong in a museum?
Literally. And it actually gets worse.
How does it get worse than crackable encryption?
Because independent security audits of various free VPN apps have revealed that some of them don't use encryption at all.
Wait, what? None at all?
None. The app interface might show you this big, reassuring green shield.
Saying secured or whatever.
Right. You are protected. But under the hood, they are simply proxying your traffic over port 80 or 443. They are initiating any kind of encrypted tunnel like WireGuard or OpenVPN.
So your data is just traveling perfectly in the clear.
Perfectly in the clear. If you are sitting on a public Wi-Fi network, say at an airport,
Right.
anyone running a basic packet analyzer like Wireshark on that network can just intercept your session cookies, your authentication tokens.
As if the VPN wasn't even turned on.
Because functionally it isn't. It's just the SIBO button.
That's fascinating, but I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier about the payload.
Sure.
Because the text explicitly mentions that certain free VPNs inject ads into your browsing.
Yes, they do.
But if my connection to a website is secured with HTTPS, the browser is constantly checking the site's digital certificate, right? To ensure it hasn't been tampered with.
That is exactly how it works.
So how on earth is a VPN provider injecting their own HTML ads into an encrypted web page without triggering, massive security warnings in my Chrome or Safari browser?
See, that requires a much more invasive technical betrayal. It's a really brilliant question.
Well, thank you.
To inject ads into HTTPS traffic, the VPN provider actually has to perform SSL scripting, or a deliberate man-in-the-middle attack.
Right, which browsers hate.
Exactly. A modern browser would normally scream at you that the connection is invalid. The screen goes red. It says your connection is not private.
Yeah, we've all seen that error.
But when you install these shady, free VPN apps, think about what happens during the installation wizard.
You click next a bunch of times.
Right, and it prompts you to give the app system-level permissions. And one of those permissions often includes the installation of a custom root certificate authority on your operating system.
Oh, wow. Oh, I see where this is going.
Yeah, you are voluntarily giving the VPN the cryptographic keys to forge certificates for literally any website on the internet.
So they own the chain of trust.
Exactly. Once their root certificate is trusted by your machine, here's what happens. You navigate to a secure site, say your bank. The VPN server intercepts your request. The server makes the actual secure connection to the bank, downloaded the page, modifies the HTML to inject their ads or tracking scripts.
Unbelievable.
And then they re-encrypt the page using their own forged certificate and send that to your browser.
And my browser sees the forged certificate, checks it against that newly installed root CA.
And falsely reports that the connection is perfectly secure. It gives you the padlock.
They have completely subverted the entire security model of the web.
They really have. And the text notes, this goes beyond just injecting ads, right? It explicitly mentions the installation of trackers and malware.
Yeah, that's the part that really got me. You install a security tool and it injects the malware. It's like buying a digital safe that comes with a built-in thief.
It is exactly like that. Some of these apps are basically just Trojan horses. The VPN functionality is just a super thin disguise for a program designed to exfiltrate your local files.
Or hijack your processing power for crypto mining?
Yes. Or even serve as a node in a malicious botnet.
Wild. But okay, let's say we assume we found a free VPN that isn't actively malicious. Let's say it's just a regular free service.
Fair enough.
The text points out that just the basic infrastructure limitations of free services render them a security liability anyway,
Oh, absolutely.
because they run very few servers to accommodate millions of non-paying users, which results in, severe bandwidth throttling, dropped packets, incredibly slow speeds.
Right. It becomes basically unusable. But more importantly than the SKID, it results in massive IP address overcrowding.
Now, I want to challenge the logic on that for a second,
Okay.
because I've always heard that sharing a VPN IP address with thousands of other users is actually good for privacy.
The whole hiding in the crowd theory.
Yeah, you get lost in the noise, it provides plausible deniability. So why does the source text argue that this shared IP overload actually leads to easier tracking and blacklisting?
Because the concept of hiding in the crowd only works if the crowd actually looks like normal human traffic.
Oh.
Right. When you have 10,000 users crammed onto a single IP address, and they're generating highly disparate concurrent connection requests.
Like all at the same exact millisecond.
Exactly. You've got someone downloading a massive torrent, someone else running automated web scrapers, 50 people trying to access banking portals simultaneously.
That does not look like a normal household.
No, it creates a highly distinct, incredibly anomalous traffic signature.
Like you said, it doesn't look like a coffee shop. It looks like a server farm.
Precisely. And automated threat detection systems things run by CDNs, like Cloudflare or Akamai, they instantly flag that IP address as an anonymizing proxy or a botnet node.
Because no single human could generate that kind of chaotic traffic.
Right, so they calculate the reputation score of that IP address, and it plummets straight to zero.
And that triggers the blacklisting.
Instantly. You try to access a standard forum or a streaming service or even just read a news article, and you are immediately blocked. Or you're presented with an endless loop of CAPTCHA CDH bursts to prove you're human.
Click all the crosswalks over and over.
Exactly. The shared IP didn't hide you. It illuminated you as a high-risk connection.
That is such a fascinating point. And it seamlessly leads into this massive marketing facade these companies use to cover up all these technical realities.
The transparency lie.
Yes. The source text focuses really heavily on this illusion of transparency, specifically the ubiquitous no logs policy.
Oh, yes. The golden rule of VPN marketing.
Right. Because every single VPN provider, whether they're free or paid, seems to have 0 logs plastered across their homepage in like massive neon font.
Always.
But the text states flatly that many free VPNs absolutely do store your activity, and they willingly hand it over to third parties or governments.
Yeah. To understand why the no logs claim is so often just a complete fabrication, we really have to look at how Linux servers are architected.
Because Linux runs almost all VPN infrastructure, right?
Almost all of it, yes. And by default, the Linux operating system, the firewall, the routing daemon, they generate extensive logs.
Just out of the box.
Just out of the box. They record connection timestamps, source IP addresses, the exact bandwidth consumed, any error states.
So the server naturally wants to keep a diary of everything it does.
Exactly. It requires deliberate, complex, and expensive engineering to configure a high-availability network that actively suppresses or instantly purges all of that telemetry.
And, as we've already established, a free provider has 0 financial incentive to implement that engineering.
Not at all.
Because they actually need that telemetry to sell to the data brokers.
Right, it's their inventory.
But wait, if they are actively logging, how do they get away with legally claiming they don't? I mean, isn't that blatant false advertising? Wouldn't they be subject to massive regulatory fines?
Well, it comes down to two things: jurisdictional arbitrage and semantic loopholes.
Okay, unpack that. Jurisdictional arbitrage.
A lot of these free VPN companies are just shell companies registered in jurisdictions with basically non-existent digital consumer protection laws.
Ah, so there's no regulator to actually fine them.
Exactly. And furthermore, they play these incredible word games in their terms of service.
Oh, so.
So they will market a no logs policy on a homepage, right? Big, bold letters. But if you dig into, like, page 14 of the privacy policy, they define the word logs strictly as the payload of your traffic.
Which we already know they can't read anyway because of HTTPS.
Exactly. It's meaningless.
Uh-huh.
And then, a few paragraphs later, they will casually admit to logging, quote, connection telemetry, or diagnostic data for network optimization.
Which is just a highly sanitized way of saying they keep all the metadata we talked about earlier.
Right. The metadata is the log.
That is so deceptive.
It is. The source text provides very clear formula for this. It says, free plus no transparency equals risk.
Right.
Because without independent verification, a privacy policy is honestly just an unverified PDF document. It means nothing.
So what does true transparency actually look like in this industry?
True transparency requires third-party penetration testing and auditing. It requires hiring specialized firms, companies like Cure53 or Trail of Bits, to come in, audit the server architecture, review the deployment code, and physically verify that the infrastructure is incapable of retaining user data.
And that's not cheap.
Not at all. Many reputable paid VPNs have actually transitioned to RAM-only server environments.
Oh, I've heard of this.
Yeah, it's great. The operating system runs entirely in volatile memory. So if you literally pull the power plug on the server, it physically obliterates all data because there are no hard drives to store it on.
That's incredible. But a free provider is never going to invest in that level of verifiable architecture.
Never.
And the consequence of that lack of architecture is severe, especially when legal pressure is applied.
Oh, absolutely.
The text explicitly states that these free providers will hand data over to governments. I mean, if a law enforcement agency subpoenas a free VPN provider, that provider is not going to risk their entire business fighting it in court.
Of course not. They will just hand over the connection timestamps and the source IPs, and the user who thought they were completely anonymous is instantly unmasked.
Have we seen this actually happen?
Oh, we have seen this play out in numerous high-profile cybercrime cases.
Really?
Yeah, the operators of some illicit service used a free VPN, assuming the no-logs marketing was a technical reality. The FBI, or Europol, simply served warrant to the provider, and a provider just handed over the database.
Wow.
The illusion of safety shatters immediately upon contact with legal reality.
Which is the perfect pivot to the much broader psychological trap that the text outlines.
Right, the grand illusion.
Exactly. Because we've dismantled the specific dangers of free VPNs, but the document moves on to bust the biggest safety myths that apply to all VPNs, even the highly vetted, heavily audited paid ones.
Yeah, this is where most people get fooled.
The text labels this the false sense of safety, and the first myth it attacks is this concept of full anonymity. The text states incredibly clearly that websites track you via cookies and fingerprinting, and your accounts still know exactly who you are.
Yeah.
A VPN only hides your IP address. It doesn't hide you.
This is perhaps the single most pervasive misunderstanding in all of digital security. People constantly conflate privacy with anonymity.
What's the difference in this context?
Well, a VPN provides a layer of privacy by masking your network origin, your IP. But it does absolutely nothing to provide anonymity if your application layer, your browser, or your apps is actively broadcasting your identity.
Right, like if I connect to a pristine RAM-only VPN in Switzerland, but then I open my browser and log into my personal Google account to check my Gmail, Google clearly knows it's me. I literally authenticated myself.
Exactly. It's like you wore a masterful disguise to rob a bank, but then you handed the teller your personal driver's license.
That's a perfect analogy, but the tracking goes far deeper than just conscious authentication, right? Like logging in.
Oh, much deeper. The text mentions cookies, which most people generally understand as local session tokens that track you across sites.
Yeah, the things you always have to click accept on.
Right. But let's look at the more advanced technique the document mentions. Browser fingerprinting.
I really want to dig into this because this sounds like sci-fi.
It's fascinating. Even if you clear your cookies and you use private browsing mode and you turn on a top-tier VPN, your browser is still constantly leaking a highly unique signature to every single website you visit.
Explain the mechanics of that. How does my browser fingerprint me without using a cookie or an IP address?
Okay, so when you request a web page, your browser has to provide the host server with a massive amount of environmental data just to ensure the page renders correctly on your specific screen.
Right. It needs to know what it's working with.
Exactly. It reports your exact screen resolution, your operating system, the precise version of the browser engine you're using, your system language, your time zone.
Okay, but a lot of people have a 1080p screen and run Chrome on Windows. That's not unique.
True. But it gets much more granular. Websites can use JavaScript to query the HTML5 canvas element on the page.
The canvas element.
Yeah, it forces your device to render a hidden, complex 3D graphic in the background
Wait, really? Without me seeing it?
without you seeing it. And because every single graphics card and graphics driver and operating system combination renders that specific graphic slightly differently at the subpixel level,
Oh my God.
it creates a completely unique cryptographic hash.
Just based on how my specific hardware draws a hidden picture.
Exactly. It's called canvas fingerprinting.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't stop there. They also query your audio context API to see exactly how your specific sound card processes audio signal.
You're kidding.
Nope. And they check your hardware concurrency to see exactly how many logical processors your CPU has.
So they are probing the physical hardware of my machine.
Yes. And when you combine the canvas hash, the audio hash, the specific list of fonts installed on your machine,
Yeah.
your battery level, your hardware
It
specs,
creates a fingerprint.
the resulting string of data is almost certainly completely unique to your specific device out of billions of devices on the internet.
So the tracking firm doesn't even care that your IP address suddenly changed to Switzerland.
Not at all. They look at the incoming request, calculate the canvas hash and the font list, and say, oh, the IP is different, but this is the exact same laptop that was browsing from Chicago yesterday.
That is mind-blowing. The VPN is entirely bypassed by the browser's own rendering engine.
Precisely. To achieve true anonymity against that, you have to tackle the application layer. You have to use heavily modified browsers like the Tor browser, which actively spoof or block all of those APIs to make every single Tor user look completely identical.
Which a normal VPN app doesn't do.
A standard VPN running underneath a standard Chrome or Safari browser offers zero defense against fingerprinting.
That dramatically recontextualizes the second myth the text highlights, which is this idea of, I can't be hacked with a VPN. Because the document points out that phishing attacks still work, malware can still infect your system, and weak passwords still get cracked, I think people visualize a VPN as like a firewall that actively repels incoming attacks. But it's really just a secure tunnel, isn't it?
A secure tunnel is the perfect way to visualize it. It utilizes protocols to encrypt data in transit.
Right.
So if an attacker is trying to intercept your session on the local network, say you're at a coffee shop and they set up an evil twin Wi-Fi hotspot.
A fake network.
Yeah. In that scenario, the VPN stops them cold. The attacker just sees encrypted gibberish.
Awesome.
But it does absolutely nothing to protect the endpoints of that tunnel, meaning your device or the server you're connecting to.
So if I receive a highly targeted spear phishing email,
Right.
and it successfully tricks me into clicking a link to a fake credential harvesting site, like a fake PayPal login or something.
The VPN will dutifully and highly securely encrypt your transmission of your own password directly to the attacker's server.
It's actively facilitating the secure delivery of my stolen credentials.
Exactly. It is application agnostic. It doesn't analyze the traffic for malicious intent. It just routes it securely.
Wow.
And it's the same with malware. If you download a malicious executable that is disguised as a PDF reader update.
The VPN ensures that the malware is downloaded securely and privately onto your hard drive.
Yes. And once that malware executes on your local operating system, it has full access to your file system. It can log your keystrokes, steal your local session tokens, and then just exfiltrate your data right back out through that very same encrypted VPN tunnel.
Because the VPN trusts whatever is on the inside of the tunnel.
Right. The VPN provides absolutely no endpoint detection or response capabilities.
Which ties perfectly into the third myth from the text. A VPN protects me everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
The text specifically notes that it doesn't secure unsafe apps or fix vulnerable devices. If my operating system has an unpatched zero-day vulnerability and an attacker is exploiting it remotely,
The fact that your outbound traffic is routed through an encrypted tunnel is totally irrelevant.
the house itself is fundamentally compromised. It doesn't really matter how secure the driveway is.
That is a great analogy. And this extends heavily into the mobile ecosystem, which is honestly where the vast majority of people use these tools now.
Right. Everyone has a VPN app on their phone.
You install a VPN on your smartphone, sure, but you also have 50 different apps installed that you've granted exhaustive system permissions to.
Oh, like a flashlight app that wants my contacts.
Exactly. Let's say you've granted a weather app access to your precise GPS location, your contacts, and your local network.
Yeah, okay.
The VPN is masking your IP address from the network, but that weather app is reading your physical GPS coordinates directly from the phone's internal hardware chip.
And then just uploading that data to a third-party server.
Yes. The app bypasses the network obfuscation entirely because it has OS-level privileges.
So the data isn't leaking from the network tunnel at all, it's leaking directly from the device architecture.
Yes, and this is exactly why the document's fourth myth, the idea that all VPNs are safe, is so critical to debunk.
Because some of them make you less safe.
In many cases, injecting a poorly configured or maliciously operated VPN into your network stack actually increases your attack surface. You are voluntarily introducing a brand new third party that has complete unfettered visibility into your routing tables and your DNS requests.
All right, so we have thoroughly dismantled the illusions here. We've explored the economic incentives for data harvesting. We've looked at the technical realities of compromised infrastructure, the failure of the no-logs marketing, and the hard mathematical limits of network-level encryption against application-level tracking.
We've ruined the magic trick.
We really have. But if VPNs are not the panacea they are marketed to be, how should we actually architect our personal digital security? Because we need a solution.
We do. And the source document provides a really grounding principle here.
Yeah.
It says, quote, "A VPN is not a shortcut to safety."
No shortcuts.
Right. It mandates a shift away from looking for a single silver bullet and moving towards adopting a strategy of defense in depth.
Defense in depth. I like that.
Yeah, you don't rely on a single wall. You build overlapping layers of security so that if one fails, the others catch the breach.
Okay, let's walk through the actionable checklist the text provides for this layered defense.
Let's do it.
The first point is to use trusted paid VPNs with audited no-log policies, which makes sense because this addresses everything we just discussed regarding the economics of free tools.
Exactly. By paying for the infrastructure with a subscription, you remove the financial necessity for the provider to monetize your data.
Right. And by demanding independent third-party audits.
It's verify the engineering reality of their network. You aren't just trusting their marketing PDF.
So it transforms the VPN back into what it actually should be. Just a reliable tool for encrypting data in transit and masking your IP from your local ISP.
Nothing more, nothing less. But crucially, the text places that tool alongside several others.
Right, the second layer.
The second point is enable 2FA two-factor authentication,
Which is the direct countermeasure to the phishing and credential stuffing attacks that we established a VPN cannot stop.
Yes. If a VPN doesn't stop you from accidentally handing your password to a fake banking portal, 2FA ensures that the stolen password is just completely useless on its own.
Right, because the hacker doesn't have your phone.
Exactly. And to be specific here, as security professionals, we should be looking beyond just SMS-based 2FA.
Oh, because of SIM swapping?
Yes, SMS is highly vulnerable to SIM swapping attacks. True defense, in-depth, involves hardware security keys utilizing FIDO2 or WebAuthn protocols.
Like a physical YubiKey or something.
Exactly. Or at the very least, time-based one-time password authenticator apps.
Like Google Authenticator or Authy.
Right. Because this ensures that authentication requires a physical hardware token that a remote attacker cannot replicate, regardless of what network path they're taking.
Perfect. Okay, the checklist continues with keep your system updated, which is all about endpoint integrity.
It addresses the compromised house analogy we used earlier.
Yeah.
Software updates are rarely just fun feature enhancements. Most of the time, they are critical security patches for known common vulnerabilities and exposures, or CVEs.
So if you ignore the update,
if an attacker reverse engineers a vulnerability in your browser's JavaScript engine, and you have an outdated system, you are instantly compromised the moment you visit a malicious site, regardless of how strong your VPN encryption is.
So patch management is basically the foundation of endpoint security.
Absolutely.
Then we have avoid suspicious links and downloads, which, I mean, sounds kind of obvious, but it fundamentally relies on the user operating as the final firewall.
It really does. It requires building a personal threat model.
Yeah.
You have to actively scrutinize the sender of an email, manually verify the domain of a link before you click it.
And just refuse to execute unverified binaries.
Right. It's the psychological layer of defense in depth. Because no technical control can perfectly mitigate human error.
Yeah.
If a user is socially engineered into actively disabling their own security tools just to install a piece of pirated software they think they need,
the technical architecture fails completely.
always.
And the text pairs this with use strong, unique passwords, which really limits the blast radius if human error does occur.
Exactly.
Because if one account is compromised, unique passwords ensure the attacker cannot just pivot laterally into your email or your financial accounts using the same credentials.
Precisely. The containment is built in, and the final layer recommended by the text is to combined with antivirus and browser security.
Which provides that localized detection and response that we said the VPN lacks.
Yes, an effective endpoint detection and response tool, an EDR, it monitors the actual behavior of processes on your local machine.
Right.
So if a downloaded file attempts to silently modify system registries or inject code into another running process,
The local security software detects the anomaly and terminates it.
exactly, it stops the malware execution that the VPN merely transported.
I think this all culminates in a really brilliant concluding analogy from the source text.
Oh, I love this part.
It states, a VPN is like a curtain, not a fortress.
It's so accurate.
Right. Closing the curtains on your windows is a necessary baseline for privacy. It stops people walking down the street from logging what you are watching on TV or mapping out the floor plan of your living room.
It limits passive surveillance.
Exactly. But a curtain does absolutely nothing to stop someone from kicking down your front door.
No, it doesn't.
For that, you need the heavy deadbolts of strong cryptography, the alarm system of two-factor authentication, and the structural integrity of a constantly updated operating system.
The curtain obscures, but it does not defend. And really understanding the strict technical limitations of that obscuration is what separates effective digital security from just dangerous complacency.
That is so well said. We've covered a massive amount of ground today, analyzing the deep technical and economic mechanisms that drive this massive privacy industry. But as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought that shifts from the hardware back to the human element.
The human firewall.
Exactly, because we've established mathematically that a VPN does not make you invincible. But consider this psychological phenomenon known as risk compensation.
Oh, this is fascinating.
When humans feel artificially safe, they inherently increase their risk tolerance. Think about people driving faster just because they're wearing a seatbelt.
Right, that is the ultimate vulnerability.
Ask yourself, does the very feeling of having that little green VPN shield activated on your taskbar actually make you bolder online? Does the illusion of a digital fortress make you less likely to scrutinize a suspicious email?
Are you more willing to download a questionable file or bypass a browser warning simply because you mistakenly believe the network tunnel has your back?
What if the greatest danger to your digital security isn't the technical failure of the tool, but the psychological complacency it breeds the exact moment you click connect? Is that feeling of safety actually your biggest vulnerability?
It's something to think about next time you log on.
Definitely. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Stay analytical, question the architecture, and keep layering those defenses. We will catch you next time.